Last month, I told you about Kandi, the Chinese electric vehicle company that has been working to introduce its K27 and K23 electric cars to North America. I told you we'd originally spoken to someone at the company and arranged a press loaner vehicle so we could review one, and then I told you about how that spokesperson stopped responding to our emails, and how difficult it was to get any answer from the company at all. I also talked about a strange change on its website. The K23 and K27 were still listed as highway-capable cars, but Kandi was also advertising neighbourhood electric vehicle variants of the same vehicles, NEVs being speed-limited vehicles that are only allowed on certain roads. And I explained why that was both concerning and perplexing, especially considering I'd had zero success talking to Kandi. Literally the day after the video went live, Winter was wearing his social media moderation hat and flagged a comment to the team. That comment was from someone who appeared to be affiliated with Kandi. The comment stated the author was frustrated with the video and implied we'd not reached out at all to Kandi before making the video. Luckily, we were able to touch base via email, and having shared our good faith attempts to connect with Kandi, he was enthusiastic about trying to answer the questions that we posed in our last video. We also learned in our conversation that there's been more than one person doing PR at Kandi and SC Autosports, and that the switchboard had been putting me through to the voicemail for someone who it turns out couldn't help. Don't ask me why that message didn't then get passed on. I really didn't want to dwell on chasing that question down, having reached someone who's enthusiastic about giving us answers. As a result, we're excited to have responses to our questions, and we're hoping to line up a K23 NEV to try. Kandi said that it is working on a Seattle dealership, and so if we can't yet get our hands on the full version of the Kandi K23, then a K23 NEV should give us some idea about fit, finish, in-city handling, and low-speed performance. And at any rate, it has the potential to assuage some of our intrigue about this company's cars. But getting our hands on even a Kandi NEV looks like it is still a while away. Back to Kandi's answers to the questions we posed in our earlier video, which, if you didn't see it, is linked below. And some of their answers are fascinating, both for what is said and what is implied through what is unsaid. So let's first talk about these NEVs. We asked Kandi why it had chosen to start selling NEVs in the US, having not included them in the original product launch. Our theory in the original video was that the NEV designation might have come about because of delays meeting DOT crash testing requirements. It seems that while there is a delay getting the K23 and K27 ready for the US market, caused by those crash testing requirements, more on that in a moment, that's not the driving force cited by Kandi for selling the K23 and K27 as NEVs. Remember, Kandi bought a US company, SC Autosports, to make its new US market entrance. SC Autosports was and is primarily an off-road vehicle company selling motocross bikes, ATVs, UTVs, go-karts, etc. And in that market space, one of the brands that they are up against is Polaris, a popular ATV company. As such, Kandi states it is also planning to bring to market a bunch of both electric ATVs and pit bikes this summer. So far unsurprising, but also kind of exciting. But the deeply interesting thing is what the existence of Kandi NEVs reveals. While Kandi is looking to sell a, shall we call it, mid-range, lowish cost EVs in the US, the company sees Polaris as a primary competitor in its primary market segment. And Polaris does import and sell cars of a sort, but they're not economy cars like the Chevy Spark or the Honda Fit. There's something different. The car-like objects Polaris imports are what the French lovingly call sans-permis vehicles. The name Axan might be familiar to some of our European viewers, as it made some truly terrible diesel quadricycles back in the early noughties and still seems to sell something similar. One of my biker friends considered one before test driving it. These vehicles, of which the quirky but cruel Citroën Ami is another, somewhat more interesting example, can be driven in much of Europe without a car license. And while the more powerful versions of some cars sold sans permis are available, the Renault Twizy is available in a version you need a driving license to pilot, as well as a sans permis version, people tend to remember these vehicles as being limited in their top speed and their capabilities. Like the neighbourhood electric vehicle, they're speed restricted and subject to much less harsh crash requirements. They're also expected to meet a certain price point, which is to say, they're meant to be pretty cheap. And Polaris imports the teeny tiny French Assam, which retails from around $15,000 up to a nearly astonishing $20,000. Kandi said, quote, "NEVs allow us to offer another product to keep our power sports dealers competitive with name brands and to secure part of that market share." But Kandi are still looking to build the K23 as a regular EV, and this combination of factors places Kandi in a tricky spot. Because to be competitive in the NEV arena, the NEV has to be very affordable. And to be competitive in the EV marketplace, the highway variant realistically needs also to be priced to not cost massively more than things like, say, a second-hand Chevy Bolt EV. While there is a market for people who just want a new car and will take a less well-equipped new EV from an unknown manufacturer over a second-hand, better-equipped car from an established brand, that market's probably not huge. So suddenly, pricing and differentiation of what is effectively the same car with a different battery pack becomes much more challenging. It certainly sounds like Kandi are looking to continue selling the NEV after the K23 and K27 come to market in highway-capable form, so that calculus is going to have to be very careful. And weirdly, at the moment the NEV is actually $2,500 more than the K23 highway-capable version will be after incentive. How marketing plays out as Kandi tries to differentiate the NEV from the highway-capable vehicle later, that's also going to be a challenge for Kandi and really interesting to watch. Let's just say that the Kandi K23 does get approved and starts being imported to the US later this year. Will people differentiate between the two, or will a highway-capable K23 be swallowed up by general attitudes around NEVs? Just like the Renault Twizy in Europe, where the more power Renault Twizy 80 can top 50 miles per hour, 80 kilometers per hour, more if you remove the speed restriction, but the Twizy 45 tops out at an uninspiring 45 kilometers per hour. That's 28 miles per hour. Will the highway Kandi models be dragged down by the reputation of its slower NEV variant? In answering another question that we'll get to later, Kandi also indicated that selling the K23 and K27 as NEVs is related to the fact that they do not have to meet DOT standards for crash safety, which we'll talk about more in a bit. But as I commented back in that first video while Kandi's getting the car up to scratch for DOT requirements, it does mean that they can sell into the US market in some sense or other. So I will say I understand their reasoning better now. Whether it will help or hinder in the long run is a tricky question, but it certainly seems to me like a risky marketing choice. As a new market entrant to the US, that first impression is super important. And I speak as a Kia owner and a former Yugo driver. Although with the Yugo, that wasn't really just a poor first impression. Second, third, fourth, frankly, all the impressions from the Yugo were terrible. But ask Kia and Hyundai what it's taken to turn around attitudes towards their cars. It took me quite a while to come around to the idea of buying a Kia despite them winning multiple quality awards, simply because of their old market reputation. Right, onto the K23 itself. Here we had a few questions. What's the status of crash testing? What happened with Q1 shipping? And what about the much reduced range figures? Well, with regard to range, there wasn't a clear answer about whether the original figures were WLTP or NEDC figures or just internal estimates. Kandi states that the EPA ranges are normally less than what can actually be achieved, Possibly that's true for the Kandi K23, but as a general statement, it's one I'd disagree with. In typical driving, I found the EPA range isn't a million miles from accurate. Yes, I can get more from cars in the summer, but then in the winter, I may not hit the EPA range. It obviously depends on how heavy your right foot is. Mine can be pretty heavy at times, and also weather and vehicle loading and whether it's a Thursday. I never could get the hang of Thursdays. But at any rate, Kandi state that, quote, ranges most definitely are closer to the original figures when tested in real-world driving. This is one of those things we can only really test in an actual car, so we'll just have to wait and see if and when we have one on review. Okay, so the range question was a dead easy one to answer. The question about why cars aren't in customers' hands right now, that's a more nuanced one, and to answer it, Kandi directed me to its earnings call at the beginning of the year. In it, there's a question about Kandi's US market entrance. The response, which I'm about to quote in a second, is translated in a transcription from that call. That call was in Chinese, and I don't speak Chinese. Quote, there are still some safety requirements that we are trying to meet and satisfy, and mostly about that crash pad. Because requirement for multiple crash pad, especially for the safety airbags, the standards for the airbags is different from the US and the European market and in the PLC market. And that's why so far what we are doing in the major requirement is to be hard to refine our standard for the airbag in order to meet standards from the DOT. Which adds a little more to the picture about why there aren't Kandis on the road. At present, China does not even require a passenger airbag for a car to be deemed roadworthy, and importantly, the more basic Chinese cars are very much engineered down to a price point. Certainly until a few years ago, Bosch reportedly specifically employed Chinese engineers who better understood the local market requirements, because engineers from its European operations were so used to the multiple airbag along with side curtain airbags and side impact protection system requirements that they had difficulties cutting back to the easier to meet requirements of some segments of the Chinese market. There's a reason you can't just drive down to the local DMV to register that $2,000 EV you purchased from Alibaba and had shipped to you in a giant cardboard box. And while Chinese safety standards and expectations have shifted much closer to the European and American standards over the past 10 years, the cars sold in China are much safer than they once were. Meeting the standards for Europe in a car originally designed for the Chinese market has the potential to be quite difficult. And meeting people's safety expectations as opposed to just their requirements, that for the American market may prove quite challenging. And it's not just airbags. Electronic stability control, for example, is mandatory in the USA and, as far as I can see, optional in the People's Republic. Indeed, GM's best seller in China, the Wuling Mini EV, sports just one airbag, and while it has ABS, it doesn't have ESC. So depending on what the standard equipment for the K23 and K27 are in China, Kandi may have its work cut out getting them ready to meet those requirements. Moving on. Unfortunately, Kandi wasn't able to provide much of an update on crash testing, except to say that it wasn't happening at the US HQ and that the company didn't want to be drawn on a timeline for completion, saying that when a firm date is known, Kandi will publish a press release. All of which suggests to me that this is more than a simple case of just replacing one airbag with another, or maybe tweaking some settings to comply with really specific DOT requirements. Also, unfortunately, the US PR team doesn't have a direct contact to find out how that process is going, instead saying that's in the hands of engineers back in China, and the US team are concentrating on getting the dealer network up to speed and pushing out the NEV. While we're thinking about this, it's also important to remember that, for reasons, New Hampshire doesn't require people to wear a seatbelt, making the specifics of airbag deployment even more complicated. BMW was caught out a few years ago with the i3 needing some tweaks because airbag deployment wasn't sufficient to protect some women when unbelted, and as a result, every i3 sold had to be recalled. Finally, we come to that dealer question and the empty dealer page. Kandi state that, quote, Until we launch the highway models in stores, our dealers set up for that would have no direct way to assist customers arriving at their doorstep. It also states that it has an extensive list of dealers ready to go as soon as the cars meet DOT standards and can go on sale here, and obviously once they're imported. And it's one of those dealers we're hoping to go to try a Kandi K23 NEV at. The timeline for that is still somewhat up in the air, but we look forward to bringing you more when we hear more. So there you have it. That's Kandi's response to our questions. It's definitely filled in some of the blanks, but it does still leave the timeline very open. It's a complex and challenging business bringing a vehicle into a new market, and whether or not Kandi are up to the task is yet to be seen. Looking at the comments on the last video, it seems that many of our viewers are skeptical. And having seen the trials and tribulations of Bright Automotive, Detroit Electric, Byton and Faraday Future, for example, and even established companies considering adding EVs to their portfolio like Dyson, I think Kandi have an uphill battle ahead. That said, we're looking forward to trying the Kandi K23 when we can see it in the metal, be it an NEV or not. We're hoping we'll be able to drive it too. That's it for today. Please do hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't, as it stops YouTube from doing weird things with our content. And make sure you're subscribed to Take 2 and Transport Evolved Shorts. There are links below. Thanks on behalf of the entire TE crew go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month patrons. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons, Guido Drahoa, Brophy Wolf, Anonymous Freak, Regine Fellows, Kyle Hodgson, Gordon C., Paul Conway, Laura Sanborn, Anthony Coates, Denny Hyde, Sean Ueda, and Tezza in the Gong. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters, John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylan, and Ian. If you'd like to join the ranks of wonderful supporters, you'll find links below to Patreon, Bitcoin, and Ko-fi. Chat with the team and TE fans over at Discord, and if you'd like to buy some TE swag, just head on over to our Redbubble store. Don't forget that we've now got a brand new channel for Transport Evolved Shorts. We'll link to it below, and you should totally hit the subscribe and the bell right down there, as well as do the exact same for Transport Evolved Take 2 and Transport Evolved Shorts. Help us grow our other channels, and that means we can make more awesome content and do more awesome things. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving!